So hi everyone, hope you're doing really well. Welcome to this episode. If those who have recently subscribed and joined us, a very warm welcome. Thank you to all of you for your support. I wanted just at the beginning to say, we wanted to let you know that we have purchased another investment property, and on Monday we're going to give you a tour of that and show you around it and explain a little bit to you. But we just thought it'd be helpful for you to understand what I have mentioned before, that property investing, when you find the right properties, it's not so much about the property rather than the situation of the vendor. And I thought it's really illustrated in this situation that we've just purchased. Yes, the property has to have the capacity, it needs a refurbishment to add value. Then you refinance, you pull some of that equity out. So it's essential the property is in need of modernisation, is in need of refurbishment. However, you can find properties that are in need of refurbishment and the situation of the vendor means you're never going to get a deal. So I just thought it'd be helpful if you understood the three things that the vendor must have that increases your likelihood of having a below market value or below average market value offer accepted. And then what I'll do is I'll illustrate that as I give you a property tour on Monday. So I hope this is helpful to you. These are the things that I would suggest you look out for when you do your viewings, as well as looking at the property. Think of these things in mind. If you have all three, then the likelihood of having a lower offer accepted, buying wholesale, buying at a discount is massively increased. So what are these three things? So the first thing is you want to make sure that the vendor has the capacity to accept a lower offer. Now, what that really means is they need to have equity in the property. There's no good you viewing a property and you finding out that it was purchased at 9% loan to value mortgage, and if they sell at 10% below market value or below average market value, then all they're going to do is use that money to pay the bank off. They're not going to have any money in the pocket. So it's unethical. It's also almost impossible that you're going to get that offer accepted. So what I mean is they need to have equity in the property, and there's a couple of things you can do to sort of find this out or give an indication to it. One of the things I like to ask is, are the vendors upsizing or downsizing? Now, it is likely that if someone is upsizing, they're going to need all the money they can get to buy that bigger property. So if the house has gone up in value since they purchased it and they've got equity in a property, then that's likely going to be used to buy the bigger house they're moving into. Again, not always the case, but it's very likely. What you are looking to try and hear are, oh, they're downsizing, or they're relocating, or they're just going to live on a canal boat, or whatever it might be. That gives you a suggestion that they're going to not need all those funds, and then they might be able to take a hit and you might get your lower offer accepted. So have they got equity in the property? Are they downsizing? Another indication for whether they might have equity in the property is, when was the property last purchased? So if a house, again, was only purchased 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the likelihood that the house has gone up massively in value now is unlikely. However, if the property was last purchased, say 10 years ago, but that increases the likelihood that in that 10 years, there's been 10 years of growth, they have quite a lot of equity in their property, they can again accept a lower offer. Again, not always the case, because you might turn around and say to me, well, what happens if they've just refinanced at 75% loan to value of the higher value? They've bought it in year 10 and 8 years later they refinance. Yes, exactly. So there's no guarantees in this, but it is increasingly likely, if the property was purchased a fairly long time in the past, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, it's likely, more likely, there's equity in the property, there's more likely you can get a lower offer accepted. The second thing is what about the situation that the vendor's in? And we talk about this an awful lot. And essentially what you're trying to find is there's a property here that they're trying to get rid of, or there's a situation relating to their property that they're trying to get rid of. And if I go back to Joe's example, if you haven't seen that, click on the nice card on screen or link in the description, Joe's property tour. The situation for his vendor is they didn't want to live in England anymore. They wanted to move back to Ireland, back to family. So that was their situation. They just have to get rid of this property to enable them to do it. So there needs to be a situation that dictates that they have to sell. Relocation to the one, probate to the one, whatever it might be, the vendor needs a situation. And related to that, the third thing they need to have is a deadline, a hard deadline to be done by. And again, if I give an example from Joe, because I'm going to talk about our example of the new property we just purchased on Monday's episode, but in Joe's example, they'd already purchased their ferry tickets to travel on the ferry to Ireland. So they had purchased the property a long time ago. In Joe's case, they had equity in it. They had a situation they wanted to get away from. They wanted to get out of England, over to Ireland, and they had a hard deadline. They'd already purchased the tickets. So there is a perfect, all those three things layered up together. Joe put an offer in that it was wholesale price, and it got offer accepted. Absolutely brilliant, completely textbook. And they're the things you look out for, not just looking at the condition of the property. Find out the situation of the vendor. Now, what we'll do on Monday's episode is I'll give you a tour and I'll give you those three things that apply to our vendor situation and how we were able to secure a discounted purchase price. So I hope you find that interesting in your own property investing journeys when you're doing your viewings. Yes, even in hot markets, perhaps you can see the context of why we did our previous episode, why we still view in a hot market. There are deals to be done, and I and Joe are living proof of that. Look for those three things. Look for equity in the deal. Look for a situation that the vendor's trying to get away from, and look for finding a deadline. And a final tip for that is ask the question to the estate agent to ask the vendor, do they have a date they're trying to work towards? So that's it for this one. Thank you all of you for your support. I would just like to make this plea, if it's okay with you, excuse the sirens. If you found this helpful and you like this video, it really does help our channel, which we'd love to grow. By the way, we'd love to try and scale this ethically, organically. If it's genuinely helpful interest, then please leave a like, please subscribe, and please share it if you think other people might like to come and know about us, perhaps work with us. I don't know, joint venture thing or something. If you could just spread the word, we'd be super grateful, Beck and I and the family. That's it for this one. Thank you ever so much for all your support. We look forward to seeing you on Monday's video where we give you a tour of our recent purchase.